Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another series of 5 days, 5 VRs. This is maybe the third time. I'm pretty sure it's the third time that I've done this. And since y'all seem to like the previous times I have put out a string of VRs, I thought I would just keep with the tradition. So for day one, I am going to actually do a VR mashup to Kelly Bear and Logan of Larkin Legend. So Kelly Bear's tag is the Tarot Winter Wardrobe tag that she had released around the holidays of last year. The second VR is from Logan. It's called Deck Reconnect. And this is a tag where we discuss the decks that we haven't used in quite some time or just would like to reconnect with for whatever reason. Speaking of Logan, shout out to him because he introduced me to this fabulous nail polish. He wore this on a video, and of course people in the comments were like, excuse me, what nail polish are you wearing? And it turns out it is from ILNP, which is a nail polish brand that Kenneth from Common Hawthorne introduced to me. So I was happy because I could vouch for the quality of that nail polish. So into the cart it went, and it makes me so freaking happy. Anyway, okay, let us get started. So basically with this mashup, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Kelly Bear's prompts to the Tarot Winter Wardrobe, and then the decks I'm going to show in response to those prompts are ones that I would like to reconnect with this year in 2023. The first prompt is base layers / thermals. Which deck or decks are foundational to your tarot practice and why? So this will not be a surprise for returning viewers to my channel, but it is the Llewellyn Tarot. This is a foundational deck for me because this is the deck that I learned tarot with. And this is modified. I took off the big borders and the titles, but this is a deck inspired by Welsh mythology. And even so, because the imagery was so complementary to Pixie's original imagery, it was a great way for me to learn RWS without having to use traditional RWS, if that makes any sense. It worked fantastic. And this was like the first deck where I felt like, okay, I'm finally getting it. I am finally understanding the structure of tarot and the different archetypes and meanings. And so this is a deck I haven't unfortunately worked with in a hot minute. I don't even know that I picked it up at all last year. I honestly cannot remember, but it's one where, even looking at it now, I can easily identify the cards, the titles, without having the titles written there because I have such a history with this deck. And I think it's beautiful. I love the artistry. And so this is a deck that I would like to use at some point this year. Second prompt is Ugly Christmas Sweater, a novelty deck that brings you joy. Okay, so I feel like there have been other tags where I have used this deck in response to ugly deck or weird deck or whatnot. But it really is the first deck that I think of, and it is a novelty deck in its original design, but it is one that brings me joy, and that is the Magical Tarot. Now, this is actually a scratch and reveal activity book that you punch these cards out of. So PSA, don't buy it. Don't buy it. It is not worth it. Quality is not great. However, I took the time to finish what I started and make this into a usable deck. And, some people might find this imagery ugly. I don't know. I don't find it ugly. Um, but it is a novelty deck. I mean, some might find it ugly. I think it's actually quite cute and whimsical. It is a little weird at times, but I think that's part of its charm. Um, and it's one that I don't reach for a whole lot. Actually, did I even use it last year? I don't think I pulled it out once last year. But it is a usable deck. And so I think that I'm going to make an effort to use this in March. I think in March, I am going to kind of do like a resurgence of, March of the Pips and just use all the pip decks I have for that month and devote my time to pips. So this will be one of those decks. Next prompt is Winter Coat, your workhorse or most used deck. This is a deck that I used to use a lot, but was last year usurped by another deck, and I'll explain shortly. But this is my answer to this prompt is my Inspired Soul Tarot. So this came from the loins of the pandemic. That is when I created this deck, and I used it all the time. This is also a pip deck. This was a way for me to not only just, I guess, lean into creativity and use the pandemic as a way to really immerse myself in a project since, we were in isolation and I had the time to do that. And this was a nice distraction from the stressors of the pandemic and also a great way for me to become more comfortable with pip decks. That was another kind of main driver for me, that I wanted to become just more comfortable and practice more with pips. So I use this all the time. But then when I made the Notorious JBG Tarot, that took over, and this one fell by the wayside and got neglected. And so I feel bad. I miss her. I also plan to reconnect with her in March. So, and this is my version of the Happy Squirrel card, the Happy Baby Yoda card. But yeah, I just looking at her now, I do miss her. And I'm very much looking forward to reconnecting. Number 4, Snow Boots, a deep dive deck that you can really sink into. What makes it so interesting? So I have 2 that I'm going to show. And the one is the Star Tarot, this is the first edition, the glossy version with the hideous borders that I clearly chopped off. And I love this edition. I do not want the second edition. I bonded with this one. And then the Guild Tarot. And both of these are Thoth-influenced decks. And as some of you may already know, I did my kind of first study with Thoth last year. And this one never came out. This one did a little bit, but both of them have very in-depth guidebooks or companion books. And I have read a good majority of the companion book for this one not so much. And so I just think in general, both of them are great decks to lean into in terms of, symbolism and some of the Thothy influences, and especially with the Guild Tarot, reading more of the companion book, I'm hoping that will provide some more illumination as to like what I'm seeing in some of these images and the choices that were made depiction wise. And they are both pip decks. I mean, this one I feel like is kind of a hybrid of like pip and illustrated. Like this one is illustrated, but then others feel more pippish, and this one is definitely what I would, I guess, call a pip. So these might also kind of go into the month of March, but we shall see. I mean, if I'm being quite honest, I highly doubt that I will read all of the companion book for the Guild Tarot or reread all of the companion book for the Star Tarot, let's be honest. But these are juicy decks and ones that I would like to work with again. Prompt 5, Hat. A deck that twists your nogging or that you struggle to connect with or understand. So this is a deck that I have struggled with. And, you know, it has been one that I have considered letting go, but then I take it back out of my purgatory and yeah. And that would be the Antique Anatomy Tarot. So this is one that I actually was pissed at before because it was very stiff cardstock and I had a hard time shuffling it. But since then I've broken in the deck, so that is no longer a problem. But yeah, I have trouble feeling the kind of deeper connection that I want to feel with this deck because, I mean, this is like this art style, this aesthetic is so my cup of tea, and yet I don't know what that disconnect is. Maybe it feels too sterile. I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on it. And so like another thing I did, as you see here, I don't like Roman numerals. I know I sound petulant, but it's my truth. I can't stand Roman numerals in my decks, in my pip style decks. So I wrote the numbers instead, thinking, okay, maybe that'll help. At least for the minors I did. And you know, I don't know that made much of a difference, but it is just like, I'm looking at this deck now and it is, I really love it imagery wise. And I want to say I need to revisit my journal, but I did do a few readings with this deck, and I want to say that, the readings were fine, but it's like I want this deck to, flick my switch, and it doesn't. Like, not quite, I mean, from just a imagery standpoint, yes, I think this deck is beautiful. But from a tarot deck standpoint, I'm having trouble. So, in March, we're going to give this deck another go. Number 6, Scarf. A hug deck for when you're in need of comfort or support. So once again, I am going to show 2 decks. They are different versions of the same deck. Different editions, and that would be the Moon Void Tarot. So this is the 2nd edition, and this is the 3rd edition. So the 2nd edition is one that I bonded with almost immediately, and by the way, I have modified the decks by adding color to both of them. But I love this deck, and of course, I just love the artwork. Even though this is supposed to be, the deck creator, it doesn't bother me for some reason because I feel like I actually see myself and not her. Like, I can separate that. For some reason, this deck makes it just very easy for me to do that. So I bought the third edition because I was all about the revisions she made, the tuxedo cats she put in, the pink. And I gotta say, I had a little bit of a harder time connecting with this deck. I think it was kind of like fighting for my attention with this deck, and I don't know. I almost feel like I didn't give this one like enough of a chance, you know? So, and then this deck, I just really didn't pick up all that much last year. So I actually want to work with both of them at some point this year. And this deck is a comfort deck for me because it just feels like, as I said, you know, I'm looking back at myself, and therefore it has this very kind of empathetic vibe. It's like the Moon Void empathizes with me and really understands me. And so that's why I guess I would consider this kind of like a hug deck. So yeah, I am looking forward to working with them both. Maybe I will even work with them both together at the same time. That might be interesting. And the final prompt, Mittens, your travel deck for readings on the go. I honestly don't have a designated travel deck. It's really just whatever deck I am in the mood to take. But just for the purposes of a deck being travel friendly, I chose the Morgan Greer Tarot in a Tin. And you know, I know people love tins, and I don't hate tins, but I really don't like this. So if I were to take this with me, I am going to be traveling in March. Oh shit, I didn't even think about that. I'm traveling in March. So how can I do March of the Pips in March if I'm traveling for like 2 weeks? Oh well, anyway. So, okay, this deck is, you know, a nice size. But if I do take this on my travels, I don't know that I'll take it in a tin. I might just put it in like a little bag or something. Anyway, it's a great, you know, kind of pocket size deck, if you will. And it's one that I just don't use a whole lot, to be honest. So I would like to, you know, reconnect with this one as well. And if not on my travels, then certainly at some point later in the year. But it's a good deck, you know, it's a classic for a reason. And I do have to be in the mood for it, though, just because of how close up we are to the faces. And, you know, I have to be in that kind of, you know, porn stash mood. And so, yeah, but it's again, another fluid reader. And yeah, I love the size. I love how it shuffles. So another one that I plan to use more in 2023. So that is it. I hope that you enjoyed this VR mashup for day 1, and I hope to see you back here for day 2 of 5 days, 5 VRs. Until then, much love and take care. Bye-bye.